Our first real lesson for the new unit, War and Revolution. We went through these 5 seemingly unrelated questions, reviewing from first semester and from the last unit. 30 Years' War ended in 1648 with the Treaty of Westphalia. Remember, that was the war that started with the Holy Roman Empire fighting little Protestant Bohemia. So we have a Catholic group, Protestant group. Holy Roman Empire is ruled by the Habsburgs, and they get help from their cousins, the Spanish Habsburgs, as well as their Catholic next-door neighbors, Poland. And then Bohemia gets assistance from Denmark, Sweden, and eventually Catholic France, because France was tired of being stuck between both Habsburg families, the France sandwich. As a result, France is able to win this war, and following the 30 Years' War, France is the most powerful country on the continent. Then looking at Leopold of Austria, also a Habsburg, he wanted to be an absolute leader like Louis XIV, but he was unable to do so for a few reasons. One was the Turks, or the Ottoman Empire. They were sort of always trying to invade his territory. And the other reason is he took over Hungary, which was culturally very different, different language, different religion, different government style, and that diversity made it difficult to rule. Skip ahead to 1815. France had been dominant. They go through the revolution. They are dominant once again with Napoleon, and the Congress of Vienna wants to repair Europe and prevent another Napoleon situation from happening. So those 3 goals: 1, to contain France; 2, to balance the power; and 3, to restore the monarchy. But the balanced power is what we're going to focus on, because they don't want any one country to be powerful again in such a great degree. 4, the first country in the world to industrialize was Britain, but on the continent, capital C, proper noun, meaning the main body of the continent. That first area is Belgium, northeast France, and western Germany, so that whole area there. And lastly, Queen Victoria had 9 children. All of these elements are going to play a role in why the First World War will happen. Here is the map at around 1900. You can see France has shrunken back to its proper original borders. The German Empire is pretty large. It's including the Holy Roman Empire and all of that Prussian territory. We have Austria-Hungary, which is quite large and includes lots of different cultural groups. Again, that diversity is still an issue. If you see at the bottom, French North Africa, because we have colonies, Italian North Africa, and the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is still just barely holding on to power at 1900. They are no longer the great world leader that they used to be, where they controlled the bottom half of the Mediterranean. They are called the sick man of Europe. They're just barely holding on. So we're going to look at 4 big causes for this war. Nationalism is a huge issue. France, again, they still sort of are looking back on that power from the 30 Years' War. We were the best. But in more recent history, France had lost some of that power, especially in 1871 when they lost the Franco-Prussian War. And with the loss of that war, they had to give up the territory of Alsace-Lorraine. This is an important territory because it's full of natural resources and had industrialized. That's that region that industrialized. So by 1900, France is pretty sore towards Germany for having taken that territory and having beaten them in the Franco-Prussian War. In general, France is still concerned with reestablishing itself as a world leader again. They want to go back to that type of power they had after the 30 Years' War. Another area where we see the growth of nationalism is with the Slavs. In the Industrial Revolution unit, we talked about Slavophilism, these people of Russian descent or Slavic heritage who wanted to go back to pre-Peter the Great Russianism. Pan-Slavism, and you know the prefix pan means all, this is an attempt to unite all Slavic peoples, the largest of which is Russia. So Russia sees itself as the protector, the mama bear of Slavic people. So that's in Russia, throughout Central and Eastern Europe. All of these little groups, none of them nearly as large or as powerful as Russia, but many little groups. The problem is that many of these little groups are not interested in the influence of Russia. Just like when you have older siblings or your parents are protective, you sort of are looking to break away with that. That's exactly how these little ethnic groups feel about Russia exerting its force over them. Many of these groups, many of the Slavic groups, live in the Balkans. The Balkans are sort of just above Greece, and I guess you could call Greece part of the Balkans, next door to Italy. So we have all of these little ethnic groups with various powers fighting over them. The Austro-Hungarians are fighting over part of the region. The Russians claim part of the region. The Ottomans claim over part of the region. And this only causes these ethnic groups to want their independence even more. And we've talked about this before, that when someone different is telling you what to do, you crave that independence even more. All of this makes the Ottoman Empire quite nervous. They are already old and weak, and so any potential riot or rebellion could be the thing that tips the scale to their decline. This will happen in 1912 with the Balkan Wars. This is Serbia and Greece fighting against the Ottoman Empire. Now they are both, Serbia and Greece are both very, very small. The Ottoman Empire is just barely able to prevent that kettle from boiling over. You see the cartoon that Europe is nervous. Europe is nervous about the tension in the Balkans, and even in 1888, Otto von Bismarck said that the next great European war will come from some silliness, some damned trouble, is what he said, in the Balkans. So Europe was very aware that the Balkans is a hotbed of activity. But in 1912 and 1913, the Ottoman Empire is just barely able to hang on and win that war. Our next big cause is rivalry between empires and businesses. This is mostly between Germany and Britain. Britain was the first to industrialize. Germany is a relatively new country, but Otto von Bismarck's work in modernizing Germany and uniting it quickly, Britain is potentially going to be surpassed, and by 1900 they are. Germany's businesses, Germany's industries are more productive than Britain's. And just like we talked about with the Boer War, Britain realizing that its military might not be as superior as it once was, with their business, Britain can no longer rest on the laurels of being the first. They will still have to maintain that excellence. In particular, Germany has natural resources for chemicals and metal industries, especially over in the western part, and that territory, Alsace-Lorraine, that they gained. This will be important because you can make weapons with chemicals and metals. Another way we see this is through the idea of empire. Both France and Germany, they didn't have many colonies, they didn't have a ton, but because they're both looking to reestablish legitimacy and power, they are interested in taking over as much as they can. So there's a little competition there as well. Our third big cause is militarism, this passion for building up the military and the pomp and circumstance and the sort of the fun of being in the military. The idea that weapons are cool and the uniforms are impressive. And this is a way to demonstrate to other countries your power. Now this is Lord Kitchener. He was the head of the British Army, and this poster was created in this time to make young men feel that not only would it be cool to join the military, but it's necessary, that my country, my beloved country, needs me. Oh gosh, what a responsibility that is, what an honor that is. And this will be the poster that the Americans copy to create Uncle Sam. Part of this militarism also plays into social Darwinism. You'll remember that the main phrase that Herbert Spencer creates in the 1800s is survival of the fittest. And social Darwinists see that war not only could be fun, but it is necessary. I mean, one of the biggest results of war is death. And social Darwinists believe that only the strong survive. So therefore, war in which people die means the weak people die. And that mankind, that the human race will be made stronger through war. So they see war as a positive thing. The other element of this militarism is the arms race. There's already the economic competition between Britain and Germany, but now they're going to start competing not with the length of their limbs, but with the number of weapons that they have. They will start building more and more weapons, and they'll say, well, I have one gun, well, I have 7. I have 12, I have 42, and it just becomes this ridiculous competition. And then both countries are left with a stockpile of weapons. And if I had a bucket of water balloons, I'm not really going to have the self-control not to throw them at you all when you're in class. Just like an army is not really going to have the self-control not to use those weapons if they're at their disposal. Our last big cause comes from a system of alliances. It's often called a tangle, so I like using the imagery of friendship bracelets. We have all these countries who are going to create alliances. We start off with Germany and Austria-Hungary in 1872. This is just 1 year after Germany unifies, so they're still a new country. They're new, they're powerful, and they want to ally with Austria, who is old and weak. But the thing is, they're old and they're respected. So from this relationship, Germany will get legitimacy. They will get more respect. And Austria will get sort of that new energy and the power that the German Empire has. So they are both benefiting. Then they add in Italy about a decade later. Italy also is new, is looking for that legitimacy, and is looking for that military power. So look at that from Germany. And then last, we have the Ottoman Empire. Weak, old, on the verge of decline. They need backup. So these 4 countries together will be the Central Powers. They're called the Central Powers because they are located in the center of the map. On the other side, we have the group. They don't weave their bracelets, they use buttons and beads. France and Russia, opposite ends of the continent, totally different systems of government, but they create this alliance because they have a common enemy, and that common enemy is Germany, and they are on opposite ends of Germany. Then we get France and Britain. Now, this is a pretty historic event because France and Britain have been rivals for nearly a millennium. If you think back to 1066 and the Norman Conquest, or the 100 Years' War and Joan of Arc, or Napoleon and Nelson, the British and French do not like each other, but they like Germany even less. So in 1904, they signed an Entente Cordiale, a friendly agreement. Hey, we'll take a truce on our hatred for each other. We will create this friendly agreement. We will work together. And this is sort of a big deal that even the Boy Scouts realize that we can be friends now. We can work together for a common purpose. And then we round it out with Britain and Russia. So we have all 3 countries, red, white, and blue, and they are called the Triple Entente. So you see on the left, the lady with the blue skirt, she has that red revolutionary cap, therefore she is French. In the center, we have an Orthodox cross and an imperial seal, that is Russia. And on the right, in the red skirt with the anchor, that of course is Britain, famous for her navy. So here we go. Here's the map. We've got the Central Powers in the middle, and we have all this. We still have the different ethnic tensions, the ethnic groups. Another way of looking at this picture is from the book Leviathan. It's a science fiction book that sort of is about the First World War. And I love this image because it is symbolically showing what each country is sort of focusing on. Germany is all about military and industry. Russia, the bear, going down to protect its Slavs, perhaps in Serbia. Austria-Hungary trying to control Serbia. We have Great Britain, the lion. France trying to push back Germany. Spain is the bull, and then there's lots of other animals which I don't recognize. So we have all these alliances. We have Austria-Hungary trying to control other areas. We have Russia trying to interfere in that situation. We have France and Germany still sort of, they have that tension left over from the Franco-Prussian War. To add to all of that, not just political alliances, but there are issues within families. Going back to Victoria's 9 children. 9 children means a lot of grandchildren. So Victoria earns the nickname the grandmother of Europe. We are particularly interested in 3 of those grandchildren. The first is George. He is the son of, his dad's name is Albert, or his royal name is Edward. And George will become King of England. So King George V, King of England. Next, from her oldest daughter, Vicky, we have Kaiser Wilhelm II. Because remember, marriages were about alliances and diplomacy. So Kaiser Wilhelm II, the leader of Germany. And then last, we have the Tsarina and Tsar of Russia. They are doubly related. They are cousins, which we'll talk about later, the issues that over intermarrying can cause. But we have these three cousins, and they're a family. They go to family reunions, they vacation together. They are a family, but they also happen to be leaders of countries in Europe. Here we have Nicholas and George. George is on the right, Nicholas is on the left. They were very good friends, and they end up making that alliance against their cousin Wilhelm, who you see there, bottom right. And Wilhelm was always sort of a little bit of a jerk, even as a child. He becomes Kaiser when he's 18 and is always obsessed with image, with the uniforms and the medals, and his swag, I guess. And it's very understandable that in this buildup of empire, he makes a lot of enemies. And even his two cousins, Nicky and George, will end up on the other side of this war. So we have these four big causes, perhaps main causes is one way to look at it. So we have M-A-I-N. I don't have the graphic up there for you, but think of them as the main causes of this war. All right, next time we'll talk about the spark that leads to war.